Hi, friends. As we continue to journey in the season of Advent toward Christmas, uh, these videos are meant to be sort of pause buttons, to pause to reflect on the significance and meaning of the season of Advent and how the story of Jesus might take root in our lives and how our lives might be changed by the story. Many of us know that the season of Advent is a season of waiting, of hope, of preparation. And as I think of that, I think that the season of Advent, as it is supposed to be celebrated, clashes sometimes with how our culture normally operates during the weeks leading up to Christmas Day. We live in a culture where we have pretty much all of the things we want or need, maybe more than we need. And much of the season of Advent, the season of the weeks leading up to Christmas Day in our culture, is spent worrying about filling our lives with more things that we might not want or need. In effect, in our culture, the season of Advent is a time where we are trained to put our hope in things that we might not need. We're trained to put our hope and wait and look forward to things that we might get on Christmas Day. And in this sort of cultural climate, I feel like it's really difficult to identify with what Advent's all about, what the hope and the waiting really is all about, and that it's about more than just things that we fill our lives with. There's a passage in Isaiah 9 that's used to refer to Jesus, and it's certainly an Advent type passage. In Isaiah 9, it says, "The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelt in a land of deep darkness, on them a light has shone." And as I read that passage and think of Advent and think of Jesus' coming as light into the darkness, I think of our culture, of the busyness. And I think, man, it's tough to identify with this passage in a world where our lives are illuminated by artificial light nearly 24/7. It's tough to grasp the season of longing and waiting of Advent when we are pretty self sufficient. What is it that we're waiting for? Nothing. We can just buy it. What are we longing for? Well, we have pretty much everything we need. It's tough to conceive of an imagination, an experience of longing and waiting, unless it is strapped by sickness or loss. But then when sickness or loss come, we just hope and long and wait for the trouble to pass in our lives to get back to normal. But the season of Advent is a season that invites us to embrace the darkness, to embrace the time of hope, of longing and waiting for things that we cannot fill our lives with on our own. Advent is an invitation to consider that nothing in this world is normal, that nothing in this world is right. Advent forces us to notice the darkness and to notice that our attempts to mask the darkness of this world and of our lives is a very thin cover that really doesn't cover the darkness much at all. And a lot of times, our attempts to cover up the darkness with our superficial celebrations of Christmas in our culture, these attempts to cover the darkness with artificial light typically burn out as quickly as we put our Christmas trees down. Advent invites us to reckon with the darkness, that we are people in darkness waiting for light, and that we can't produce that light ourselves. Advent invites us to think about this, that we don't really know the light without first knowing the darkness. We don't know true and profound hope until we know how to sit in the darkness of our lives in the world and realize that the hope has to come from outside of us, beyond us, from a God who enters into our lives. We can't produce the light and the hope on our own, and Advent invites us to quiet our noise and to realize that that is our reality. So as you reflect on Advent today and this weekend, consider the darkness. Don't cover the darkness, but let it be the darkness. And consider the need for light and hope in our lives that buying more things can't fill. And consider that the light and the hope that we need is something we have to wait for, is something that we can't produce with our own efforts. But also consider that that light is the brightest light that will illumine our lives far greater than any of the celebrations and gifts we can come up with on our own. And it is that light, that hope, that we wait for during Advent. And it is that hope that we celebrate. The people in darkness have seen a great light. In Jesus Christ, that light has come. May that be your hope today as you wait in the darkness of this world. We'll see you soon.